Welcome everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. Yes, I did. We are looking at some songs that Diana shared with us tonight, and one of the songs was a little bit of an oversight on my part. I'd forgotten that one of the songs that Ron chose was "Abide with Me." So we talked some about "Abide with Me," and I believe you even had some comments that you made. But so what we'll probably do is push "Abide with Me" toward the end, and then spend some time with that at the very end, since we've already had some discussion about it. But I think it's worth it to go ahead. I mean, if songs mean something to people, I think it's worth it to go ahead and hear their thoughts on those songs. And so that's what we'll do a little later tonight. But we'll begin with the song "Nearer, Still Nearer." Josh, by the way, I've got the slides there for us when we're ready. This is a song that I like as well. Certainly at times, I think it's a song that it's contemplative. It's some of the words are powerful. It's thoughtful. It puts me in a particular sense of I think being nearer to God just in singing the song. And it's I think it resonates with me because it's a request I think we've all kind of had before, that we would be nearer to God, that we would be able to draw closer to Him. And sometimes I think we don't really know how to do that. I think we struggle with knowing how to do that. And so this song I think is meaningful to a lot of people. It's written by a woman named William Morris. She often went by Mrs. C.H. Morris, as was sort of the way things were done at the time in a lot of cases. It was written in 1898. Lelia and her husband were very active in the Methodist Episcopal Church. They were very active in camp meetings. I don't know if you guys know what camp meetings are, but it's just what it sounds like. You go out to these camps or these places where you could gather together and worship, preaching, and sort of an outdoor gospel meeting kind of thing. Mrs. Morris wrote more than 1,000 songs. Some of the ones she wrote are "My Stubborn Will at Last Hath Yielded," probably one that you are somewhat familiar with. She also wrote "Sweet Will of God" and "Sweeter as the Years Go By," in addition to this one. A lot of the songs she wrote while doing housework, which I thought was kind of interesting. Just as she went about her responsibilities, she would compose songs. I don't know if she did that in her head. I know that as she got older, her eyesight started to fail, and her son built for her a 28-foot long blackboard with this oversized musical staff on it, so that she could continue to compose even as her eyesight started to fail. So obviously this was something that was important to her, something that was very much a part of her life, something she valued a lot, her ability to be able to do that. And so she didn't let, like Fanny Crosby, she didn't let the loss of her sight get in the way of that. The song reminds me of a couple of passages. Reminds me of Hebrews chapter 10, verse 19. "Therefore, brothers and sisters, since we have confidence to enter the most holy place by the blood of Jesus, by a new and living way opened for us through the curtain that is His body, and since we have a great priest over the house of God, let us draw near to God with a sincere heart and with the full assurance that faith brings, having our hearts sprinkled to cleanse us from a guilty conscience, and having our bodies washed with pure water. Let us hold unswervingly to the hope we profess, for He who promised is faithful." Grounds that desire we have to be near Jesus in what Jesus has done for us, and Jesus's sacrifice gives us the opportunity to be close to God, to draw near to Him, And so the writer of Hebrews says, let's draw near to it. Similarly, in James chapter 4, James writes, submit yourselves then to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Come near to God, and he will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, purify your hearts, you double-minded. Grieve, mourn, and wail. Change your laughter to mourning and your joy to gloom. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. I guess coming near to God isn't always a happy, joy kind of thing. Sometimes it takes repentance, and it takes mourning, and it takes sorrow for sin and for failure. But the promise is, draw near to God, and he'll come near to you. And I like that reminder, that promise that our desire to be near to God isn't one way, right? It's not just that we want to be close to him and he's sort of aloof and standing apart. As we try to draw near to him, he draws near to us. And I find that very comforting, very, very hopeful, and very helpful. So let's sing Nearer, Still Nearer. Would somebody start us with that? Dan, would you mind starting us with that? Or Josh, or somebody?
I'll try that. Nearer, still nearer, close to thy heart. Though I sing, Lord, so precious thou art. Oh, for me, close to thy rest, shelter be safe in that day of rest. Shelter be safe in that day of rest. Nearer, still nearer, nothing I bring, not as an offering to Jesus I bring. Holy my sin,
So Diana mentioned this one and something to her. Let's turn it over to her and let her make a comment or two or what she thinks about this.
Well, as we go through the three songs tonight, I want everybody to see it, if you pick up on a common theme among the three songs. I don't know, maybe Patrick already has, I don't know. Or if any of you have looked them over. Well, this one, I love the harmony of it. I think it has beautiful, beautiful melody, beautiful harmony. And as Patrick said, you know, as we live the Christian life, we want to be near to God. And in the first verse, I like the idea that we're not doing all the work. God is not some aloof concept out there. We're approaching him, but he's bringing us. And I think of sometimes, I don't remember it too much from my own childhood, but I think about my grandchildren and how sometimes they'll crawl up in my lap and, want to be hugged. It makes me emotional. So
That's all right.
um,
That's what a good song does, right?
and then again, what we're bringing, there's really nothing that God wants from us except that we repent of our sins, and that's all we have to offer. And again, this is part of I think the common theme, but it ends up, what's our reward for us trying to be nearer to God? And our reward is that we'll have eternity with God. Anyway, that's why I like it.
Yeah, I like that sort of the way it goes from, bring me near and I know I'm not what I ought to be, and I know there's things I need to let go of, and I'm trying to do that. And then that idea sort of nails it at the end that we're near to God. I think that's a beautiful line. Through endless ages, ever to be near my Savior. That's a wonderful thought, and a lot of hope for us, and a lot of security and peace for us are in those words. Thank you for sharing that. Other thoughts on Nearer, Still Nearer? Is it a favorite of anyone else's? Something you want to comment on?
I think it's a song everyone can relate to, because no matter how close you feel you are to God, you always want to.
Yeah. You can always relate to it because we are always wanting to be nearer to God.
There's an interesting story. I think I've told you I've read about Mr. Rogers and the person he was. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
And he a couple people have talked about when he visited their loved ones who were dying. And he would, and I don't know how often he did this, but two books I've read about talk about it. He would, visit with the family, do the normal things, and go up and whisper to the person who is ill a request that person pray for him, for Mr. Rogers. And his rationale was, in your situation, you're close to God, near to God, not because necessarily you're about to move on, but just that what you're dealing with. And he found that it turned something. We all were praying for the person who's ill, but to have the person who's ill praying made you look at it in a different way. And I was reminded of that, excuse me, the idea of being near to God just made me remember that. It's not maybe very relevant, but it seemed like it to me.
No, I think it is, and I do think it. I think the song, kind of the way the story you're telling about Mr. Rogers, the song sort of turns things, right? That whatever is going on, the thing that we want and the thing that gives us hope and gives us peace is being near to God, and that can happen in any situation. This song reminds us that we can draw near to God in any situation, in any place, and we can find rest and find hope and find peace in that. And so I think the song kind of reminds us of that and helps us to sort of see a different perspective on our lives, perhaps even by singing the song, even by making the request that we want to be closer to God. It sort of transforms the way we see our lives. At least it does for me. It lets us sort of see that anywhere we are, we can be near. And then that's what God.
I'll chip in sort of from a musical standpoint. I didn't put this on my list, which is probably a good thing, because then Diana and I would have like completely the same list. Here, this is a huge favorite of mine. I could probably sing it every single Sunday. Musically, Diana mentioned how pretty the harmonies are. This song, actually, I was introduced, and I've led it a few times this way, but this song actually can show you the wonder of 4-part harmony, because you can start it out with just the melody and just having the women sing the melody, and the melody is very pretty. And then on the second verse, you ask the altos to come in, and immediately the alto and the soprano part, it's just so wonderful. It's just this lovely duet. It's just charming. And then on verse 3, you ask the tenors to come in, and you think, this is perfect. I mean, the tenors add what they oftentimes do. They add an extra layer, they fill out the chords, and you think, it can't get any better. What are the basses going to do? And then on verse 4, you add the basses in, and all of a sudden, you realize how much you missed the basses, how much adding the foot to the chord there enriches everything. And all of this time, as you're layering in parts, that last verse, till safe in glory, till, what is it? Still safe?
Still safe in glory, my
Anchor is cast, right? That is a triumphant verse. I mean, that's just sing full volume. That's a shout of victory there. And so the song just has this natural building as you go from a request all of a sudden to the statement of confidence that this is going to happen. I think it's just a marvelous. I'm completely with Diana. I love this song, and it can make me cry too. I mean, it especially as people singing, the music and the thought and everything just comes together. It's just a marvelous example of what music can add to heighten the impact of words that are already very well chosen.
It's a song that its power sneaks up on you. It sort of sounds like a quiet little introspective, contemplative song, but as you get through even the first verse, as you get, as it starts going up, and then it really hits, and you're sort of surprised by the power of it and the strength of it. And I appreciate that and enjoy that. What else? Other thoughts? I've been reminded in a lot of these, most of these songs that people have chosen, I have literally sung all my life, and I've been reminded about how fortunate I am that I've literally, been able to sing these songs and be affected by them my entire life. That's an amazing gift, and I'm thankful for that. What else? Other thoughts?
Patrick, I'd like to address something that Christy just said.
Yes.
And she brought up something that I have never looked at properly when she was talking about asking a person near death to pray for someone else. When my good friend Joy was just hours from death, I was with her, and a friend from her church, a lady, came in and was sitting beside Joy, and she says, "Joy, when you get to heaven, will you please tell my baby girl that I love her?" Oh, and in my heart right then, I considered that a rather selfish thing for that lady to do, because Joy was struggling. Christy gave me a whole new look on that. Thank you for that, Christy, because I gave Joy something to do.
Yeah, that's something to think about and something to look forward to.
I thought it turned the whole idea of, someone like that has been, prayed about and is being prayed for. And to have them be the prayer for somebody else is
Right.
a very,
Different way of looking at that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
wasn't my idea though.
Other thoughts? Well, if not, then let's turn to Diana's second song that she has chosen for us, Till the Storm Passes By. This is maybe when we don't sing quite as much, though I guess we sing it a fair amount.
I think the first time that I heard, I think Matt led it. And I don't think I had ever heard it before.
Oh,
And I was very impressed by it.
This is written by Mosey Lister, who also wrote Where No One Stands Alone, He Knows Just What I Need, many others. Lister was a gospel quartet singer in the 40s, 50s, 60s. Well, I think more the 40s and 50s, and then sort of retired from performing and mostly concentrated on writing and composing. He was inducted in 1976 into the Gospel Music Hall of Fame. Well-known songwriter, a lot of singers have covered a lot of his music. Elvis famously did Where No One Stands Alone. Perry just says that Greg led the song quite a bit, as he remembers. Apparently, from what I kind of come across, Lister wrote this song. He was asked to write a song for Mahalia Jackson, and this was the song he chose to write for Mahalia Jackson. She never actually recorded it. I don't really know why, but for whatever reason, she didn't actually record it. But he intended this song for her, and then it became popular sort of all on its own, as he had worked for the publishing company as well and published the music, and it was sung by a lot of quartets. As I said, a lot of artists have covered his music, including this one. I was reminded of Isaiah 25 as I started looking at this song, and Isaiah 25 begins, Lord, you are my God. I will exalt you and praise your name. For in perfect faithfulness, you've done wonderful things, things planned long ago. And then verse 4 and 5, you've been a refuge for the poor, a refuge for the needy in their distress, a shelter from the storm, a shade from the heat. For the breath of the ruthless is like a storm driving against a wall, and like the heat of the desert. You silence the uproar of foreigners as heat is reduced by the shadow of a cloud. So the song of the ruthless is still. Metaphorical view of the storm as those who would hurt and take and destroy. And God is a refuge from the storm for those who need it. And I find that comforting and encouraging. And I think that's kind of what he was getting at as he wrote this song. Why don't we sing that together, and then let's see what Nana has to say. Dan, would you mind getting us started? Would you mind getting us started?
In the dark of the midnight, I have lost in my face, while the storm melts above me, and there's no hiding place. In the crash of the thunder, precious Lord, in my cry, keep me safe till the storm passes by. Till the storm passes over, till the thunder sounds no more, till the clouds roll forever from the sky. Holy fast, when you stand in the hollow of my hand, keep me safe till the storm passes by. Many times Satan whispered, there is no need to try, for there's no end to sorrow, there's no hope by and by. But I know thou art with me, and tomorrow I'll rest where the storms never are, and the sun. Till the storm passes over, till the thunder sounds no more, till the clouds roll forever from the sky. Hold me fast, let me stand in the hollow of thy hand. Keep me safe till the storm passes by. And the storms come no more. Let me stand in thy presence on the bright peaceful shore. In that land where the tempest never comes, for may I believe thee when the storm passes by. Till the storm passes over, till the thunder sounds no more, till the clouds roll forever from the sky. Hold me Keep me safe till the storm passes by.
What would you like to say about that one, Diana?
Well, maybe you see a common theme here. And
Subtly, MC.
I don't know why, I'm drawn to these songs about God, about just being a refuge. But I don't know that I've been through such horrible storms in my, but sometimes it seems like that. And,
You married me.
what?
That's true.
Married me.
No, believe me, that's been part of the
Part of the
refuge,
story.
actually. No, I'm serious. The fact that, no matter what you go through in your life, God is there and will keep you. So now, not to say that you're not going to be hurt or have, consequences, but the idea of God always being a refuge there is very appealing. And again, you have it starts out, you're going through all these storms of life and things, but then the last verse is so comforting. When the long night has ended and the storms come, where are you? You're in the presence of God. And the other thing I like, and I don't know if this is an accurate description of it, and if other people see this, but in the chorus, there's like a crescendo, and it builds where you've got this horrific storm going on, and the thunder and the lightning and all that, and then it gets up there, and then the storm is ending, and you're in God's hands. I really like it.
Yeah. I noticed that too. That build, that power as you're sort of,
Right.
sort of reflecting the storm. But in all that, there's peace and there's calm because you're in God's hands, and the music, the melody really reflects that well, and the harmonies really reflect that well. And I like that last verse too, where the long night is ended. Other thoughts?
Yeah, Diana, thank you. Thank you for sharing and thank you for choosing these songs. I grew up with this song. My grandmother would sing it, my mom, in our church growing up. And I didn't, of course, know the significance of it then. I just thought, gosh, we sing it a lot and people like it and it's great. But hearing it and knowing it as a kid and growing up as an adult, it just simply makes me think God has me, that he just has me. And as Diana was sharing, our storm is our storm. And a headache could be a storm for some, or death could be a storm, but God has us. Whatever the continuum is, whatever the severity or lack thereof, however, but God has us, God has me. And that is so very comforting that whatever I'm going through, that he's there. And I do see, like Dan mentioned, the theme, he's near, he's here. And sometimes I close my eyes and I go, I want to feel you. I do this thing that I wish I could just feel you and see you. And I do, but in a more tangible way, like we feel each other. And it's just wonderful to know, and faith building to know that God is near. And so many people, writers of songs, and each of you, that it gives us that comfort that I'm not by myself thinking this, that the world, a lot of people know and want and experience the closeness of God. And sometimes that brings comfort too, to see how it does that. And I suppose that goes back to my childhood, seeing my grandmother and grandfather and my mom and everybody enjoying this song, that God is near, he has us.
I'll hop in here on the song. I like the song. I lead it occasionally, but to Diana's point about the common theme of her songs, I think this song, Nearer, Still Nearer, Abide With Me, to some people, and they're the ones who talk, who oftentimes control the dialogue. These songs are really touching and favorites because it reminds them of the feeling they have about God being near them around all the time, right? And so this is a very comforting kind of song. But as I said, I think that oftentimes is the dialogue that you hear. It was, I think I must have been a Christian 50 years before somebody actually fessed up that I don't feel God around me. I oftentimes don't have that feeling inside. And for some people, they hardly ever have that feeling there. And they don't talk about that very often because you feel sort of ashamed that I should have this feeling. But I think a lot of people, actually, if we would talk about these things, we have those periods. Maybe that's the majority of our time. That presence doesn't give us warm fuzzies all the time. But I actually think for those people, these songs are just as important because they intellectually affirm that even though I may not feel it, I know it, right? I am told this is the case. I need to have confidence that that's true, that he is there. And so I think these songs fulfill a valuable function for both sets of people, to affirm something that you may be doubting, right? Because I mean, David does talk about this some in the Psalms, right? How he's not feeling God, but we tend to tone that down and think that's unusual. I'm not sure how unusual it is, and the like. So I think these songs, whether you're the person who I just feel God's presence around me all the time, or you're the person who says, I don't feel God's presence around me all the time, but I still have faith that he's there, right? So it's very affirming in that kind of way.
I think Lister here, I don't get a whole lot of, it's vibrating with confidence here, right? I mean, he's, he talks about often hiding his face while the storm's howling around him. And he talks about needing God to keep him safe, and he talks about the discouragement that he feels. But I know thou art with me, like you said, that affirmation that because God says so, I know it's true, even though I feel very vulnerable and I feel like the storm's howling around me and there's not a lot of hope. And I think you're right. I think it's a song. It's a song for people who maybe aren't feeling close to God, but who believe that he's there and they can cry out to him and he hears and cares.
Yeah, I like that whole notion too. I remember years ago, I was talking to a friend and I said, you know what? I don't always feel God. I don't sense he's here, or whatever pronoun you want to use. I guess that's the era we're in. But anyway, I don't feel like he's here and what's going on. And they made a profound impact on me by saying, think about the person that's closest to you, that you love the most, that's there. Do you always feel their presence? And I went, no, I guess I don't. But I'm confident of that they care for me and I care for them because of some experiences or seeing other people and relationships. But that was so profound for me because I was putting something on my relationship with God that I didn't even experience in a real way, in a practical way with other people. And that I felt that I really loved and they loved me. And so that was always very, very helpful to kind of know that it's not necessarily these feelings. And then Ron makes a great point. It's because of songs like this helps us to draw near to God and feel, but to believe that he's there. And that's so true because music does something powerful for us. At least for me, it does. And I think all of us, that's why we're doing this. But yeah, it was powerful to think that I was doing this and wanting something with God that I didn't have with anybody else. It was kind of an unrealistic thing.
I actually think most of the verses in the songs are not saying I feel at all. They're more like, please God, be with me, abide with me, be near me. It's a lot of prayer in the songs.
What I feel is the storm, but I know you're with me. And so,
And he's
Yeah, hold me.
feeling vulnerable
Yeah,
because
yeah.
he's said, Satan is whispering to him, and
Right.
you can
Right.
imagine this voice in one ear, and he's saying, making you feel insecure, and but then you have the comfort of God as the refuge from the storm.
It kind of struck me as you were talking about, people were talking about how much these songs meant, like Diana and others, and other songs we've talked about, that a lot of this is about needing to lean on God and not about what we're doing. There are songs about what we're doing too, but and it struck me that how do we communicate, because these are really heartfelt things by people that have been doing Christianity for a while. It struck me, how do we get these messages across to those who are skeptical about Christianity? Like, is there a way to communicate some of this meaning better? And I don't know what, I really put that out there. I don't know what the answer is. Like, this is what's, on some days anyway, keeping us where we are, right? I mean, and yet I'm not sure if you asked most non-Christians about Christianity, these ideas would be how they would describe us. And I don't know how we can get that part of Christianity out there better. I don't know.
I mean, what comes to my mind is, having real friendships and real relationships with people who aren't believers, and they see it in the context of our lives. I think is the way that has to go. If we can be genuine with people and honest with people about the fact that we struggle too and we have storms too, I think it would go a long way perhaps toward helping people who don't believe to at least have a more genuine and sort of legitimate view of what Christianity really is and how it works for most of us. I know there are some Christians who kind of have project this sense that they've got it all figured out, but I don't think that's most of us. And I think that that's one way to change that, to let people see that faith doesn't mean that we don't, that we believe we're above everything that happens in the world. Faith is what we cling to as we go through those things, as we go through those storms.
I think this song means a lot because when you see it look like you are requesting something from God, because all through the song You are asking God to stand by you, to take care of you. At the same time, you see the second verse so he's telling God, you are promising God that after he has done it for you, you will not leave his path. So I think it's a very promising song, yeah.
It is. Promise, yeah. It's full of promise. Well, let's, if you don't mind, let's turn our attention back to Abide With Me, which, as I said a couple of weeks ago, Ron led us in a discussion of that and covered a lot. And I don't think we need to go back and go over everything he talked about. It's written by Henry Light in 1820. There's some question about whether he wrote it, whether it's something he wrote while he was dying or while a friend of his was dying, and it seems like it was sung for the first time at Light's funeral. Anyway, I did look a little bit more into the tune of it. Light wrote a tune to go with it, but several years after Light died in 1861, William Henry Monk, who composed the music for All Things Bright and Beautiful and a few others, composed a new tune for this song, and he composed a tune for it specifically, and after his 3-year-old daughter had passed. So this I think was a song that must have meant something to him in that difficult time, and he wrote this beautiful melody called Eventide that we sing with it. The song, I knew this, the song, I'd forgotten it. The song since 1927 has been sung prior to kickoff at the FA Cup final in England. The FA Cup is the sort of national soccer championship in England. And since 1927, they've sung Abide With Me before kickoff, which I think is very interesting. It's just fascinating. And sort of illustrates how this song is sort of, seeped into a national consciousness. Let's sing. Well, I don't know how many verses of it we got there, Josh. Maybe let's sing at least 3 or 4 verses of it. And would you lead us? Abide with me as Praise and the saints shall speak. In life, in death, Lord, I with thee. I would just say objectively, the best last verse of any hymn ever written. Maybe. It's an amazing final verse. Diana, what did you have to say about that?
Well, I mean, if you figured out the theme of my selections here, I seem to be particularly drawn to songs that talk about God as a refuge, as a comfort. And I particularly in this one, in the first verse, it says, when other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless. I think I've felt like that. I think it's just from, you know, how I became a Christian and just the time in my life, there were a lot of changes going on and there were, you know, things in my life that were not good, and it was just, it seemed like just such a comfort, such a refuge, to know that none of those things mattered. As long, you know, I was giving them up and putting myself into God's hands. And the second verse, as those things are, you know, going away, change and decay, and all around I see it. And then God, there's no change. He's the same, and again, he's there. You draw near to him, but that he's not moving away from you. He's still coming close to you as you move toward. And again, I think you see the progression in all of these songs, you know, from again the trials and tribulations of life, but again, what do you come to in the end? You have God there with you.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that all of these songs were addressing that theme and kind of had the same progression in the verses. And until I kind of looked at them again, and I thought, wow.
Definitely. You have a kind of song you gravitate toward, yeah.
I mean, I there, as I went through the book, I saw others, and I should have picked that one. These particularly, that emotionally, they really draw me.
Very good. That idea of abiding and from Luke 24, as Ron pointed out a couple of weeks ago, that, you know, abide with us. It's late, you know, come and be with us. And when they invite Jesus to abide with them, to be with them, they recognize him, they see him, and they're energized and they're uplifted and they're given hope. Other thoughts on abide with me that you didn't share before?
That's my catharsis of the week.
Thank you for sharing.
Comforting words, and like Diana was saying, no matter what's going on in our lives, as long as God abides with us, we'll be all right. It's a beautiful. Beautiful.
That's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Well, and just it is I mean, it does come from that passage in Luke. And by the way, Abide with Me 'Tis Eventide, another good song. It seems like this idea is just, it calls to you, but it's a big theme throughout Scripture, right? I mean, God was with them in the garden. Then they had to leave. there's separation. To the Jews, what happened? Well, the tabernacle, right? And God was there amongst them, right? The temple had the presence of God. Jesus is Emmanuel, God with us. And in the end, right, there's the New Jerusalem. And what's the significance of it? God is dwelling with man. So this idea really is a pretty profound one in terms of Christianity, that reuniting that happens. It's not just wishful thinking. I mean, there's a pretty strong basis for it. In the passage in Luke, it is coincidental, right, that the people said, stay the night with us, stay with us, because they were thinking physically. But I think Luke means it more than that. I mean, that's why he chose that story to emphasize this idea.
And that's why I like the last verse. Hold your cross before my closing eyes, shine through the gloom and point me to the skies. I mean, it's wonderful. That's an amazing, affirmation of the gospel and the hope that we have, and the promise that heaven's morning will break and earth's day shadows will flee, and God will abide with us. Will abide with us. That's the gospel. That's the good news. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Diana, for sharing, and thank you all for your thoughts and being with us tonight. Good to see you all.